Russians claiming they're going to reduce military activity in two key areas around the capital of Kyiv and also northeast of that in Chernihiv. I want to read you a full statement from the Deputy Defense Minister, and what's notable in this is that this statement was made after the current round of negotiations taking place between the Russians and Ukrainians in Istanbul. So listen to this. He said, quote, due to the fact that negotiations on the preparation of an agreement on the neutrality and non-nuclear status of Ukraine, as well as on the provision of nuclear guarantees to Ukraine, are moving into practice, taking into account the principles discussed during today's meetings by the Ministry of Defense of the Russian Federation in order to increase mutual trust and create necessary conditions for further negotiations and achieving the ultimate goal of agreeing on the signing of the above agreement, a decision was made to radically, at times, reduce military activity in the Kyiv and Chernihiv regions. Again, that statement from the Russian Deputy Defense Minister. I want to bring in Democratic Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin of Michigan. Thank you so much for being with us, Congresswoman. If you can hear me, and if you heard that statement and have been following this development, I just want your take on it.
Listen, it's positive, but when you're dealing with the Russians, it's Reagan, it's trust but verify. And the number of times just in the recent weeks that they've agreed to something like a humanitarian corridor with the Ukrainians and then gone ahead and bombed it, I mean, we need to actually follow up and make sure they're doing it. So it's a positive step, but they actually have to do it in order to celebrate anything.
Yeah, look, absolutely. I mean, the Russians have repeatedly lied, and I don't use that word lightly, from before the invasion through the last 6 weeks as they've been striking civilians and whatnot all over this country. Still, nevertheless, the Ukrainians haven't pushed back on this notion. And in fact, the Ukrainians are giving the sense that some progress at least was made in these talks. I wonder what your hopes are for the next few days.
Yeah, I thought what was interesting out of the announcement, one, that the Ukrainians seem right now to be confirming the reports, but secondly, that there was clearly discussion of other countries, individual countries, providing some security guarantees to the country of Ukraine, right? Looking at that list, I think they said Canada or Turkey or Israel, just like an interesting list of countries. It's not NATO, right? It's some members that are in NATO, it's some that are not. So I think it's just an interesting development. We all knew that once Putin went in and invaded like this, he completely changed security in Europe, security, frankly, globally. And we knew there was going to be a lot of, different things happening after this was finally resolved. And I think we're seeing interesting data points of just a very different security architecture in that area.
Now, look, there's a lot of new information coming in. We're all trying to process it. I really do appreciate you rolling with us on this and trying to process it at the same time. You've been working on your own proposals on sanctions. And the reason I bring this up is because the Ukrainian President Zelensky, and again, this was all before wherever we are at this moment in the negotiations, but President Zelensky's concerns have been that the sanctions aren't coming quickly enough. What he basically said yesterday was that my understanding is there will be more sanctions if there's a chemical weapons attack. Why do I have to wait, he says, for a chemical weapons attack for more sanctions on Russia? Your response.
Sure. I think that there's a number of us who feel like you could have had a more steady drumbeat of sanctions just sort of ratcheting up week after week. And that when we made the decision, which I think, reflects where the American people are, that we weren't going to send American sons and daughters to fight for Ukraine, that we had a responsibility to use those sanctions as our muscle. And I think that we could have done more, certainly naming of oligarchs, naming of their wives and mistresses, sanctioning them, seizure of material, things that would have created that steady drumbeat. It's not the decision that was made by the administration, but I sympathize with Zelensky. He's trying to do everything he can and not waiting for a weapon of mass destruction to be landing on the heads of his people.
If there are productive talks, and I use that word lightly, I mean, I don't know what that would even mean. But if talks are ongoing, should sanctions or new sanctions wait while talks are ongoing?
Well, that's fair, and I think we need to take our cues from President Zelensky, right? He was asking for more sanctions maybe 48 hours ago. Let's see what he's asking for now that there seems to be some positive movement on negotiations. We need to take our cues from the head of this country that's being attacked. But I do think that, we have to actually see some action from the Russians before we sort of have a celebration that maybe this is the beginning of the end.
That's a great point. Just because they say they will radically reduce their troop presence around Kyiv and Chernihiv doesn't happen until it happens. And John Kirby of the Pentagon says they haven't seen any evidence of it yet, but I know we're watching it very closely. Again, Congresswoman Elissa Slotkin, you have expertise in a wide range of areas. We really appreciate you joining us this morning and rolling with us on this.
Thanks for having me.